TechFlow, before this video starts, I do just want to say a massive congratulations to Jed Williams, who has just won our Asus Zen Wi-Fi giveaway from a few weeks ago. Guys, I hope you're all doing well, and welcome to the video. Hello and welcome to the show. My name is Alex and this is TechFlow. More specifically though, welcome to my review of the 2020 iPad Pro. So what do people think about when they're going to buy a tablet? And I think the first thing is going to be, what are they going to do on it if they're about to shell the base price of £769 out on one of these slates? And then I think there's two more questions to be answered. The first one being, is the iPad Pro going to do good tablet things? And question number two is the iPad Pro going to do good computer things? i.e., is it going to replace my PC? In my head that I am reviewing a tablet here, not a computer, right? This is a tablet. You interact with it differently than you would a computer with a mouse and keyboard. You hold this thing, you touch its screen, it has a pencil if you would like it to. It's completely different than a computer if you think about it. Now, the iPad is that good at being a tablet. It has its own audience, and I'm part of this side where I use this for a tablet because I use the pencil and I do all my note-taking on it, but we'll get more into that a little bit later. But there's definitely this other group of people that are probably in the need of a new laptop and are thinking, can I get an iPad instead? So first off, we need to get this out of the way, the looks and feels of the iPad Pro. Now, looks are a personal preference, but this tablet does just look stunning no matter what angle you look at it at. And it also feels really nice to hold too, and that is really important because you do a lot of holding of this thing. You wouldn't a laptop, but with a tablet, you tend to hold it quite a lot. So it's insanely important that this thing feels nice to hold, and I can tell you guys that it does. It's actually really nicely balanced. You can hold it with one finger balanced in the middle. The bezels are great, they're actually really nice. However, the MatePad from Huawei, which was just released, actually has thinner bezels, so it makes me wonder if the next iPad is going to have even thinner bezels than this. Now, this thing is really, really thin, and one side of it is complete glass, so you may think the thing is fragile, but the boxy design helps to almost camouflage that. This thing does feel rugged, and it could definitely take a beating. And yes, all I carry on mine is this skin on the back. I don't put a case on it because it is that nice to hold. And I have to say, after a year of this thing being tossed in my bag, there really isn't any sort of signs of wear on this at all. So the physical's great. It's also got a pretty insane set of speakers on it. It's got a USB Type-C port at the bottom. It's got pretty insane battery life too, and the Face Unlock is just rapid. Face ID is great, but there's one more thing as well. It also has this insane screen on it, and it's insane for one reason, and that one reason is that it runs at 120 Hz. Now, if you don't know what that means, basically it means that the screen refreshes or updates 120 times every second. So that essentially results in this thing feeling, when you use it, buttery smooth. It's honestly insane. I won't be able to pick it up on the cameras that we're using, but honestly, I think it's one of the main reasons why I love and keep gravitating back towards this iPad so much. But now that brings me on to UI, user interface. What is this thing like to interact with? Is it good or not so? But before we get onto that, I just would like to tell you guys about the screen protector that I'm using on the front of my iPad. It's from a company called Paperlike. And it's essentially a screen protector that does a little bit more than just protect your screen. I actually use the Apple Pencil quite a lot on my iPad, and if you do or plan to, I think you'll really like Paperlike. Now, when I was using the pencil without this screen protector, obviously it's just plastic onto glass, so it tends to sort of slip around a little bit. Now, Paperlike have come along, seen this, and thought, wow, we need to create a product that makes it feel like paper when you're drawing on your iPad, and that they have done. This screen protector that I've got on here feels insane. And it also kind of sounds like paper too. It's also got a matte coating on it which helps hide fingerprints, something that iPad is really prone to, and it also stops glare, which is quite nice. And I think it genuinely gives the iPad a little bit of a different look than that it had before. So if you guys do plan to illustrate or use an Apple Pencil on your iPad, I do highly recommend Paperlike. They reached out to sponsor this video, and I've had this on my iPad for like the last 2 months now, and literally I'm not taking it off because I use the Apple Pencil. It's so good. I'll put all those links for Paperlike in the description for you guys, but back onto how powerful this iPad is. I really think no matter what you want to do on the iPad, you'll be able to do it. It's more than powerful enough for 4K video editing, as Jonathan Morrison has pointed out. You can do Photoshop on here, and the Photoshop app is being updated day in, day out with new cool features like the desktop version. I think people, though, can get really hung up on specs, and I think the question is, yeah, the power's there, but how can we use it? So in the last 4 or 5 months, iPadOS has gotten some crazy updates. That crazy, in fact, that I'm using my iPad in ways that I hadn't even intended or even thought that I would be using it. So right when you get onto the lock screen, you're greeted with your apps, and then to the left, you've got this new thing called widgets. Now you can use these widgets for anything, weather, stocks, Bitcoin, literally smart home stuff. You can put anything on there. Pretty much every app has got some sort of widget that works here. Personally, I use mine for at-a-glance information like my calendar, but mainly I use it for controlling things around my smart home, like the lights in the kitchen. All the scenes are there at a tap. But other than that, all you've got there is all of your apps like you always have, right? But this is where you have to get creative, and this is where I actually use my iPad in ways where I didn't before. Essentially, I found this app called Better Notes, and now I literally do all of my note-taking in this app. I don't go anywhere without my iPad, and I note take everything. If I'm at a client's house, I write down notes. If I'm going to do a wireless survey, I've got my iPad on me and I'm writing everything down. I've even got the script for this video on the iPad right here. Previously, I was using just the note system in iOS, typing notes in like an old fart, and yeah, this worked, but my notes weren't as specific, and I also wasn't having as much fun when I was writing my notes down. And I think that has a big effect on, let's say, if the notes are for a creative project, I think it has a big effect on the piece that you're actually creating. So I think this is a perfect example from me firsthand of a dynamic use case for iPad, where yes, before I could have sat at a computer with a keyboard and mouse and typed up my notes, but now instead I'm using this app that I paid $3.99 for called GoodNotes. It allows me to share all of my notes really quickly via Dropbox to my team and the people that I work with. And like what I said at the start of the video, I think we need to look at this for what it actually is, not what it's trying to be. This is a tablet, not a computer. Now, Apple really aren't helping themselves by adding trackpad support. So yeah, now you can control this iPad with a mouse if you wanted to via Bluetooth. That's not my thing. I don't think I'm gonna be doing that. I've got my laptop for that. But on that, what is the iPad actually like as a computer? Well, here's my findings. Now, with the new updates to iPadOS that it's had over the last 3 to 4 months, the Files app has seen quite significant changes, and that is what makes this feel a little bit more, to me anyway, like a computer. So now with the new updates, you can plug in any sort of storage into that USB-C port on the bottom of the iPad Pro. So that can be a memory stick or even a card reader. So then you could plug in the files from your camera, for example, which is what I use the file system for here, for offloading things from my cameras. Now on that, the Files app also has the ability to connect to servers. I have a NAS drive in my house, so what I can actually do is when I come home from a day shooting or taking photos, I can plug the memory card into this iPad and then transfer the photos from that SD card to my NAS, which is on my network, and then they'll be there ready for me to edit on the iPad if I would like to, or on a computer that's connected to the network. Really, really cool. And it's something that I would have had to bring a laptop out for to back things up, to back up my camera, my SD card. I used to need a laptop for that, but now with this, it works. And also another brilliant feature as well is if you turn on a VPN in settings, I can actually access that NAS anywhere I am in the world with an internet connection, and that NAS has all of my videos on it and all of my movies and films, TV shows, so I can stream them all to this iPad through the Files app, which again is really, really cool. But the Files app is still not 100%. Like, they could do with a little few more tweaks, like adding a completed slider or a percentage completion slider for when you're transferring things from the SD card to the iPad storage, for example. But it's baby steps, and I'm excited to see what Apple do to improve the Files app in the next few years. Now, there's a few more recent updates to iPadOS that would make this tablet a viable PC option for quite a lot of people. One of those updates is the fact that now Safari will always and consistently request desktop versions of sites. Finally, so no matter what website you're on, whether you're online shopping on Amazon or you're trying to do some YouTube editing in the YouTube Creator Studio, you're going to get the full desktop version of that website. Finally. Like, this is a big deal. Think of the amount of people that use Google's suite of documents, for example, like Google Docs and Google Sheets. Now they can use the browser versions of those applications, even with a mouse if they choose or choose not to. And I think that feature alone really makes the iPad a viable option as a PC replacement for quite a lot of people. Oh, and by the way, they've also added pretty cool multitasking support, but I must tell you that out of my year that I've had this thing, I don't really use the multitasking all that often because it's just too easy to swipe between full screen apps at the bottom of the page. So, with all of that being said, let's go back to my original questions that I set out. Is the iPad good at being a tablet? And is it good at being a computer? Well, I would say for the tablet side of things, it actually outdoes itself with its 120Hz screen, insane battery life, speakers, display, and a great app store to back up the experience. I think the iPad Pro takes being a tablet to the next level. As for this thing being a PC though, well, I think they're still only about 70% of the way there. But the good news is that it's getting there. Things are improving, and one day I will be able to completely, well, replace this thing with a laptop. But until then, this thing is an accessory. It's a separate thing to a computer, and it serves a purpose if you can find its purpose, and it does it well. And also, again, thanks to Paperlike for sponsoring this video. It's honestly really good, guys. I wouldn't recommend it if I didn't like it. But that's been it. That's been my iPad Pro review. I love this thing, if you can't tell. It's pretty cool. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.